Great job, man. That was a team win in all three phases. Was it pretty? You're damn right it was pretty. It was pretty.
Get better, man. One day at a time, one game at a time. Family on three. 1, 2, 3. Family. Go ahead.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother.
When you hear the sound of the drum, we'll be saying, here we come. Yeah, here we come. Hey, here we come.
Check our house, man. We're good. Kicking these boys.
Here we come. Yeah, here we come. Hey, here we come. Hey, here we come. Here we come.
You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Coming back at you today for episode number 85. And today, we get to talk about a Buccaneers victory. 2 weeks ago, we talked about it when they beat the Cardinals. Week after that, of course, we were disappointed when they lost to the Saints in embarrassing fashion. And now, they have totally gone out and redeemed themselves, maybe not for the season, but for the time being, with a convincing 35-22 victory over the Atlanta Falcons in the battle for last place. They won a crucial game on the road and kept themselves out of the cellar of the NFC South in impressive fashion. We're going to talk about all of that today here on the show. Welcome back. If you're new around here, I am your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host, Mr. Bucks Football, Evan Wanish. And Evan, how are you feeling today, man? Victory Monday, isn't it sweet?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like I said, in a great mood. It's Victory Monday. Had a very, very busy weekend at work. So to top it all off with a Bucks win, and a Bucks win that looked like it did, just made it feel all the better. There is a lot of good to come from this game. And, of course, we'll talk about all of it today.
Well, the biggest thing to me was this game was never really, in doubt. Towards the beginning, kind of.
Yeah, after the 2 interceptions, after the first quarter, I was in a situation where, even though we were winning, I was like, I don't think we're going to win this game. It felt like that. But after the second quarter, things kind of started to get rolling. Vita Vea had his touchdown, which of course we'll talk about. After Vita Vea scored, that's when I was like, all right, we're going to win.
I thought, once, obviously, you could, think that in, thoughts, but in reality, looking at the game, the Bucs were down 10-7 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
But once they got the lead back and got to 13-10, after that, the Falcons just had nothing.
Yeah. There was a lot of good things on display. And like you said, towards a certain point, you kind of just knew that things were going to keep rolling. And you'd fix those early on mistakes that we saw from Jameis Winston. And, of course, we'll break those down here today on the show. Let's open it up with the stats recap. And the name I just mentioned, Jameis Winston, is the guy we're going to open things up with, our quarterback. Jameis Winston, stats on the day, 18 for 28, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Definitely not a performance ideal-wise you'd want on a Jameis, especially in the first quarter. He kind of came out, had that first pass of the game intercepted. The corner kind of undercut the route. And I think at that point, everybody in the stadium knew that pass was going to try and go to Mike Evans, right? I think it was just way too predictable. The defense knew it. The Atlanta fans knew it. Everybody on each sideline knew it because, of course, Mike Evans needed 7 more yards coming into Sunday to break that record for 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons, joining Randy Moss as the only receiver in NFL history to do it. But, I mean, it was a predictable interception. Everybody kind of saw it. And tough to shake off. But the defense went out there, held him to 3 points, I believe, right?
Well, actually, the Falcons ended up with the ball first.
Yes.
And the Falcons pretty much drove down with ease to about their own 10-yard line or so. But once they got inside the red zone, they just weren't able to capitalize on it, and the Bucs ended up holding them to 3. And then the turnover happened, and I don't believe the Falcons scored on that.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not positive. No, I don't know. I know they didn't because they never went up 10-0. So
Right. Yeah. So okay, in this situation, spare me the in-depth criticisms if I forget a few details here. I was working a concert all weekend, so even watching the game on Sunday, I was watching in the VIP area with really, really loud stages on both sides.
you're a
of me.
VIP, huh?
Yeah. I was supposed to be working, but sat my ass in VIP to watch some Buccaneers football. So I definitely made some sacrifices. So if I spare any details, feel free to correct me, but don't give me too bad of a hard time over it, because I was able to watch most of the game. I promise you. But we're here talking with you about it, of course. So, yeah, Jameis had that. And then in the same quarter, he had the interception that was intended for Dare Ogunbowale. Kind of a bad throw. Couldn't entirely get his hand on it. Tipped it up. And the linebacker that was right there just ended up hanging on to it. Landed right in his lap. So those 2 early interceptions, I thought it set the tone. Kind of like I said earlier. I was like, all right, well, it's going to be tough to bounce back from this one. Even if the defense plays well, Jameis is going to make mistakes. And after Sunday, Jameis showed me that he can win off the back of his defense, and games like this are exactly why I think he'll get a 1-year deal as opposed to a multi-year deal. Because it's just Fox Sports put up the thing. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, there's no in between with this guy. It's, one game, you have 4 touchdowns, 300-plus yards, 0 interceptions, maybe 1, and you have days like today, Sunday, where he had 3 touchdowns, 300-plus yards, and 2 interceptions. Sometimes he'll throw more interceptions. It's just consistency is something that is not his best friend. And sure, maybe the Dare Ogunbowale interception wasn't 100% on him. It wasn't that great of a throw.
Oh, it was. I mean, he threw a jump pass. Like,
right.
I'm not sure if did you see like the actual throw?
Yes. Yeah. He was kind of running to get away. The pocket had collapsed. He was running forward and just kind of jumped up and tossed it. But that all goes into decision-making as well, because that was just bad decision-making, I think, on his part. That ball shouldn't have been thrown, at least to where it was. He should have just thrown it away.
Yeah. Well, at this point, you say the word consistency. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using that word with him that much more anymore, just because I think people are finally starting to kind of realize now. Like, I think more fans, not all fans, but more fans, especially this season, have come around to the idea that he's not Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
He is Brett Favre. He's going to throw a ton of touchdowns, a ton of yards, but also he's going to throw a ton of interceptions.
Yeah.
He threw 2 in this game. Probably should have thrown 3 or 4 because there was a few other balls that should have been picked. Big thing for me was the Falcons, like I said, they drove down 3-0. Then after 2 plays, Winston throws a pick. That sets the Falcons up. I believe
they were at their own 47.
Yeah, Falcons are at their own 47. 5 plays later, the Bucs defense forces a punt, and then 5 plays after that, Jameis Winston fires a ball to Chris Godwin, which I don't know how he fit that ball in there. And most quarterbacks, after an interception on the last drive, wouldn't even try that pass. He threads it in there, 71-yard touchdown. That was the very next drive after his first throw as a pick. That was the very next drive.
That 71-yard touchdown pass, by the way, the longest touchdown pass of Jameis Winston's career and the longest touchdown reception of Chris Godwin's career. So
Who, I mean, we'll get into him, but he's ridiculous.
everybody's saying it, and you just got to leave it at that. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because this guy's got both sides. When he can make things happen, he really makes them happen and looks like an elite quarterback doing it.
But then let me just point out one more thing before we move on.
All right.
So the Bucks force another punt.
Yeah.
The next drive was a pick. So it went the 3 drives for the Bucks went pick, touchdown, pick. That's how it happened. And if you take away that first quarter, though, Jameis Winston played stellar. If you take away that first quarter, right. Like I said, he probably should have thrown 2 or 3 more interceptions. But for a gunslinger like that, and I tweeted, I said he is the definition of a gunslinger. Yep. Like, obviously, I'm not saying he's on the level of Brett Favre, because I think Brett Favre was one of the best quarterbacks like ever, right? I'm not saying that Winston's on that level. I'm saying the play style, that's how he is. That's just how he is. Brett Favre, I think Brett Favre had a year where he threw like 29 interceptions, right? Wouldn't surprise me. I don't think Winston's going to throw 29, but I don't think he's going to throw 9 in the remaining games they have. But, I mean, 23, 24, 25, maybe 26. It's not out of the realm of, possibility. And, I mean, he's going to keep slinging it. That's just, I mean, short-term memory, he has it. And, I mean, he's just going to keep firing it. And just because he throws interceptions, he's not going to be scared.
Right. And I think you're on the right track. I totally do. I think it's unfair for people to expect Jameis Winston to be a guy to finish a season with less than 10 interceptions because...
At this point. I mean, I think even less than 15, honestly.
He's just got that gunslinger mentality, and that's his play style. And if you want to compare him to somebody, Brett Favre is the first name that comes to mind.
He thinks he can fit any ball in anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Right. I think with Jameis and his play style, the interceptions are just something that comes with the territory. Now, what Bruce has kind of working for him, or what he's trying to do next season, is obviously tone down the interceptions because 25-plus interceptions a season is just not acceptable from anybody. I mean, the last guy to do it was Eli Manning a few years ago. Yep. But you want to tone those down, but I think he's still going to be that guy where he's going to throw 10-plus interceptions every single year. And that's his play style. Just like you said, he's going to wedge it into places where he thinks he can get it. Sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. And, of course, we saw that on display Sunday. But aside from the 2 interceptions, pretty good game from Jameis Winston. And you just kind of have to hope that he can get a little better with his decision-making moving forward. But, of course, it's hard to say at year 5, but...
Well, yeah, I think people had a valid thing to say, like when he came into the league. Okay, let's see if you have a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Let's see if you can work the turnover bug out of you. At this point, there's no evidence that any turnover bug is going to go away. He's gotten better on the fumbles, which I think is partly a reason why he wears the glove. I think that's a big reason why he wears the glove now is to help with fumbles, and it has. It has helped.
But yeah, bad snap to the face every now and again.
Yeah, well, but I mean, yeah, it's just like you said, you can't expect. Like I said, I even think if you expect him to throw less than 15, I think this is a guy who's going to throw 15 to 20 interceptions every season, but he's also going to throw 25 to 30 touchdowns. 30. Yeah, I mean, Brett Favre in the season I was talking about was 2004. Brett Favre threw. 2005. Brett Favre threw. He played in all 16 games, and he threw 3,881 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 29 interceptions. So obviously Winston is, I think he's on pace for obviously more than 20 touchdowns, and I believe Winston already has more than 3,881 yards or something close to that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I said, just going to keep throwing for a ton of yards, and I just as my call to fans is don't sit there and expect him to just play this clean game because it's not going to happen.
Right. So that's what Jameis Winston put on display for us Sunday against Atlanta. Let's move on with our stats recap and go over a couple more impressive stat lines before we break down more of this game. Chris Godwin. Oh my goodness. 7 receptions, 184 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Did you win your fantasy matchup this week?
I think I did, and
I hope you did.
Yeah, because I have Chris Godwin, and
Yeah.
it was actually a little giveth and taketh because I also had Julio Jones, so they were my two receivers. So Julio Jones ended up with 11 points. Chris Godwin, guess how many he had? Just guess.
Oh, God, 34.
37, pretty close. Yeah, he ended up with 37 points. Yeah, I mean, this dude, he's the number one wide receiver on, I mean, most teams in the league.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a few, like the Saints probably not, the Texans probably not, probably even the Falcons probably not. Just because there's a few teams, but there might be maybe that's only 3, 4, maybe 5 teams that he's not a number one wide receiver on.
Yeah. But that was a big thing coming into this season was can Chris Godwin kind of take a step and not be a number one receiver for the Bucs, but can he take a step and show that he is that elite wide receiver that we have seen signs of these past few seasons?
I think he answered.
We've known he's talented. And I mean, the hype around him has been real ever since that game-winning touchdown against New Orleans a few years ago. But this season has really just showed that, just like you said, he can be a number one wide receiver on, give or take a few teams, any team in the NFL. He really has that talent, and for him, not only this game to put up the big stat line that he did, but this game to put him over 1,000 receiving yards in a season for the first time in his career with 5 games left, I feel pretty good about the numbers that he's going to finish with. So him and Mike Evans both hit the 1,000-yard mark in the same game. That's the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, and I'm not going to hear any otherwise.
I would probably agree with you. Yeah, I mean, when you have 2,000-yard receivers, it's tough to argue.
The last guys to do that for the Bucs, by the way, Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson in 2014.
Yep, I remember. But they had to get both of them. They had to get both of their 1,000 yards the last game of the season.
Yeah,
that they literally happened the last game of the season. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans got it in week 12. So, there's a difference there. Just to put things into perspective of just how good Chris Godwin is. So I obviously know I follow a lot of Penn State football, and I watch a lot of Penn State football, and I've watched Chris Godwin since he came on the scene at Penn State, and I knew that this kid was going to be good. I said when the Bucs drafted him, they drafted O.J. Howard also and Justin Evans, but they drafted Chris Godwin in the 3rd round, and I said that's going to be their best pick. It just is. Chris Godwin will be their best pick. I didn't think he was going to be this good. I thought he was going to be really good. Just a good number 2 wide receiver that if he got overpaid by a team, sometimes we see number 2 wide receivers struggle to be number 1s. I don't think this guy would have any trouble being a number 1 wide receiver.
Absolutely not. He has got the skill set and the talent, and we see it on display week in and week out, especially this season. Because even the beginning of the season, we kind of talked about how Chris Godwin was outperforming Mike Evans in a way. I mean, Evans was in that little bit of a slump, and Chris Godwin really stepped up and showed how valued he can be on.
And also,
offense.
Evans didn't have the strongest game on Sunday either. So
yeah, he definitely didn't. He was able to get to his 1,000-yard mark, but Chris Godwin definitely outperformed him, at least this Sunday. But the fact that you do have 2,000-yard wide receivers and Mike Evans, although he didn't perform as well as we would have wanted him to this past Sunday, I'm still confident he's the best wide receiver in the NFL, and Chris Godwin is not far behind.
I don't know.
You remember the beginning of the season I said that Mike Evans is the top 3 wide receiver, and you did not agree with me whatsoever?
I know. It just, man, there's a lot of good wide receivers in the league, man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
The wide receiver today is just such a different animal than anything we've ever seen before. It's so
There's
hard
so
to
many
compare.
good ones.
It's so hard to compare all the guys today to someone like Randy Moss, you know what I mean? Jerry Rice. It's just such a different game of football, and the way that these guys can adapt and play, you see so many different styles of receivers now. It's hard to compare Mike Evans to a DeAndre Hopkins because they're just not the same type of receiver, but they're productive nonetheless, and I think Mike Evans, still think he's top 3, but in my book, he's number 1. There's nobody better.
I
it
don't
is
know,
what it is.
man. I do think Chris Godwin's creeping into that top 10 receiver. So that would mean that the Bucks have 2 top 10 wide receivers, and I think Mike Evans is a top 5 wide receiver. I don't know about number 1.
Oh, man. If you guys have an opinion on where Mike Evans and Chris Godwin stand in the NFL rank-wise, leave your opinions in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube. If not, send us a message, cannonfirepodcast@gmail.com, or you can check us out anywhere on social media. Send us a message there, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @CannonFirePodcast.
Shameless plug there.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Let's move on and finish up our stats recap. Another big stat line for the day. The entire Buccaneers defense. 6 sacks, 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles. One of them was a scoop and score by Ndamukong Suh. I mean, what else could you ask for? We said going into the game preview that this game is going to come down to which defense plays better. And clearly it was the Bucs, and we saw what can happen when they play big boy football 4 quarters out of 4 quarters. It was a great day for them.
Yeah. So this Bucs secondary, would you say that they probably had their best game on Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up a little argument we had, I believe it was last week. Where you asked, what would you rather have, a 10-sack guy or a lockdown corner? Do you consider any of the Bucs secondary lockdown corners?
No, absolutely not.
How many sacks did the Buccaneers have on Sunday?
They had 6.
How much pressure did they have constantly?
Oh, tons.
Okay. I think there might be some correlation there.
No, I see what you mean.
Matt Ryan's interception, he tries to step up in the pocket, takes a shot as he launches the deep ball, and it's picked off. I mean, the only complaint about the defense that you could have is that they had, 1 interception, and they probably should have had 4.
Right.
Because they must have maybe dropped 3 or 4, 2 pick sixes with Carlton Davis and Levante David.
And I want to see if there's actually a stat line, because it seems like that's the story of this defense's year is interceptions, pick sixes at that have just been dropped or couldn't hang on to it. I want to see, because I feel like we see one of those all the time, and I feel like it's 5+ this year in particular. It happens way too much.
Now, let me get your opinion on something before we move on and start to get into a little bit more of just the overall game.
Yes.
Who do you think was the best player on the defensive side of the ball on Sunday?
Honestly, on the defensive side of the ball, I think Devin White had himself one hell of a day.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Devin White. I mean, when he shot through some of them gaps for those blitzes, that was impressive.
Yeah.
He had a heck of a day. And also, a little quick kudos here. While I have the tweet up from Greg Allman, because remember, I said that football is won in the trenches.
Yes.
So Greg Allman, Bucs offensive line did not give up a sack. First time that's happened since Week 1 in 2018. Just the second time in the last 48 games. Defense came up with 6 sacks, their most in any game more than 2 years. Together, it's a good formula for a win. I'm telling you, if both lines end up performing well, obviously Jameis Winston could ruin it if he throws 7 interceptions. But as far as the secondary goes, the secondary will be better, Jameis Winston will be better, the run game will be better, and the Bucs will win more football games. It's just simple.
I'm with you 100%, and I think kind of going back to what you had said, the argument brought up of whether you'd have a shutdown corner or you'd rather have a 10+ sack pass rusher, I think it does make a lot of sense, and I think as far as this week, you won the argument because once that pass rush is there, it makes it so much easier on those guys in the backfield, and that's what we were counting on was those front
and Atlanta has
guys.
Weapons.
Yeah.
They have weapons.
Oh, yeah. They do. They have a Dirk Cutter offense, which,
Wow.
we've seen it before, can really, really outperform. I mean, look at this Falcons offense in general. These past 2 weeks, they outscored the Panthers and the Saints 55-12.
Didn't allow a touchdown in 10 quarters.
Exactly. I did not expect them to only put up 22 points, and keep in mind that one touchdown was a garbage time touchdown from Matt Schaub. I mean, to be fair, the Bucs held them to 16,
Yeah.
And they did a really, really good job, and I think a lot of that can be owed to that front 7 pass rush that really did show up. But when I think of taking a corner, I still think about those games like New Orleans where the pass rush is just non-existent. You know what I mean?
And that's on the pass rush then.
No, it is. I get you.
I'm just saying it doesn't help. Like, it doesn't help a young secondary. That game on Sunday was perfect help for the young secondary, and guess what? All of them looked good.
Yeah, they did, and I think it's exactly what they needed. Jamel Dean went out there, looked really, really good, and I think Sean Murphy-Bunting had a pretty solid game as well. Did you happen to hear anything else about his injury before I go over this last stat line?
Greg Allman had said he saw him in the locker room. He was walking around pretty okay, so he doesn't think it's anything serious.
Okay. Hopefully he can come back and play. Big game this week as these guys go to Jacksonville and take on the Jaguars. That'll be an interesting game to watch. But let's go over one more stat line from Sunday, and then we'll break down a little bit more from this game. This one. The big man, number 50, Vita Vea, Tampa Bay's own Swiss Army knife. 2 pass deflections.
The offensive weapon.
Right? Yeah, he's done more for this offense than Dare Ogunbowale.
Well, a quick shout out to Dare. He got now he doesn't have negative rush yards on the year.
Oh,
because he had that draw for a gain of like 12. So now he does not have negative rush yards on the year.
Good for him. But Vita Vea, 2 pass deflections, 1 sack, and 1 receiving touchdown. Also making history as the heaviest player in NFL history to catch a touchdown. This guy can do it all. And, man, that was so much fun watching Vita Vea get a touchdown. Like that was awesome.
That was funny.
We heard a few weeks ago the Buccaneers lined him up on offense against Arizona. He played as a blocker and laid out a pretty awesome block, by the way. And after the game, Bruce Arians is like, maybe we'll throw him in their offense every now and again. Maybe we'll try and toss him a touchdown. Well, that's exactly what happened. He lined up as the fullback, out of the eye, from the goal line. Everybody dropped back, ran their route, and Vita Vea just snuck right to the right side of the end zone. Nobody blocked him either. Nobody covered him. And it was wide open. Jameis threw him a dime. He caught a touchdown. It was a lot of fun to see. But a big day for Vita Vea, and that guy just continues to get better. And I feel more and more secure about his pick as a Buccaneer every single week. He's a damn good player.
How many offensive touchdowns does Derwin James caught?
Exactly. Vita Vea doing things offense and defensive side of the ball. But great day for him, and that'll wrap up our stats recap. So, after the game on Sunday, you sent me a text, and you said, I don't think you're going to be too happy with me on Monday's show. Well, we're doing Monday's show, and so far we've had a great time talking about this Bucs win, but I want to get into what you had texted me about, because, I don't know. Spill the beans.
Okay. So, okay, I understand morale victories, and it's a young team, right? So, of course, you need to learn how to win in order to win, right? I agree with that. I'm pretty sure you agree with that.
Yes.
Like, you need to find, in order to win, you got to find different ways to win. Sometimes it'll be ugly, sort of like the Carolina game week 2. Sometimes it'll be like I said, ugly, low-scoring game, Carolina. Yep. A high-scoring, thrilling game, L.A. A comeback game, Arizona. And then a game just, sort of utter domination, which is, what happened on Sunday. But how much does this win do for the team getting to 3-7, from 3-7 to 4-7? Because, and it actually surprised me because I didn't think it was going to have this much of an impact. The Bucs just went from the 7th overall pick to the 12th overall pick. That's a huge jump. Like, and I personally, some of the teams that are in front of the Bucs, I think are like the Chargers are in front of the Bucs. I think the Chargers are gonna end up winning a few more games than the Bucs will. So like the Bucs will end up I don't think they're gonna end up at 12. So I think the Bucs will be ahead of them. But I'm just saying, it's just small things like that, we love Vita Vea and everything. If the Bucs don't win that last New Orleans game, which I'm not really complaining about that, I'm just pointing it out. If they don't win that last New Orleans game, they end up with Quentin Nelson instead of Vita Vea. Quentin Nelson is arguably one of the best guards in football. already. And it's just, I don't know. The draft position thing really gets me because now you're talking, instead of getting a guy like Andrew Thomas or Tristan Wirfs along the offensive line, now you're talking about maybe reaching for a guy like Jedrick Willis from Alabama, offensive tackle, Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, another offensive tackle, Derek Brown, who I like a ton from Auburn, a defensive lineman. I don't think he's going to be there. So like I said, I don't think they're going to stay at 12, so I'm not really going to harp on that too much. But my biggest thing, I don't want this win to go to too many people's heads and think like, oh my God, like everything's fixed. You know, this Falcons team was really good the past 2 weeks, right? They beat the Saints in convincing fashion. They beat the Panthers in convincing fashion. And while the Buccaneers did play very good, let's not forget before that Saints and Falcons game, Saints and Panthers game,
Falcons were 1-7.
They were a 1-7 football team. They had one win.
No,
I just don't know. Like, this Atlanta team's not good. Like, they're not. Like, the Bucs probably, like, right now, the Bucs are probably the better football team. I'm not just saying that because they won. I thought that going in. I was like, the Bucs are better, but it's in Atlanta. The Bucs have always had trouble stopping Julio Jones. I just figured, I think Atlanta's going to take it. But I just don't want Bucs fans to sort of forget that. And I think I've been seeing it all over the place. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, here we go. Like, this is going to – I just think they're just really setting themselves up, man, because this team ain't going 9-7 or 8-8 or even 7-9. Like, just pump the brakes just a little bit. It's a nice win.
You don't think this team has a chance to finish 7-9?
Okay. So let's look at their schedule. They have the Jaguars next, right? I think that's a possible win. I'm undecided on what it's going to be, but I think they could beat the Jaguars. Okay, so let's say I give them a win there. Okay, let's say they're down at 5 versus the Colts. I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Colts. That's a loss. That's 5-8. Lions, will they have Stafford back? Won't they? I probably not. So I'll give them a win. Fine, 6. Texans, I think that's a dangerous game. I think the Texans are a really good football team. And that game, I think the secondary might struggle because Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins going up against the young secondary is not too good. So let's say that's a loss, right? Would you agree with it so far?
I think so. I think the Jags game is very winnable. So let's say
I think both games, both games I have them winning, games against the Jags and game against the Lions, I can see them winning or losing. Like, I really do.
I look at the Colts game as I looked at the Atlanta game, as we both looked at the Atlanta game. It's going to come down to which offense can play, or which defense can play better. Now, obviously, Quentin Nelson and the Saints, or the Colts offensive line is probably one of the best units in the NFL. So that's going to be a struggle for the pass rush. That's what I'm looking at. And, of course, if the pass rush plays well, the secondary plays better, yada, yada, yada. But I still think that's a winnable game. I don't want to just chalk that up as an L right away. I'm not saying
it's not a winnable game. I'm just saying I don't think a win's likely. Like you can't sit there and tell me a win's likely against that team. The Colts are a solid football team.
Yeah.
Would you say the Bucs are a solid football team?
No.
Okay. So then we go to the last game versus Atlanta, which I think that's another coin flip, but also it's tough to sweep your division opponents, right? I think we all know that. Obviously, the Saints did it to the Bucs this year, but like it's tough to sweep division opponents. Like I said, the Bucs have lost 5 straight to the Falcons, so it wasn't too tough for the Falcons. But in this case, I'd probably give the Falcons a win. That's 6-10. But like I said, that Jaguars and Lions game, I think, could go either way. I think the Lions actually have a pretty underrated roster. It's just right now the loss of Matthew Stafford is just killing them. So, at most, I see 6 wins. I hate to be that way on like a Monday show after a win, but just looking, I just don't see, like, there's just too many coin flips, and especially if they lose to Jacksonville. like then I definitely don't see 7 wins.
So going back to what you had said about the whole draft thing, right?
Yep.
You don't
Yep.
know how much this win is going to help the team going from 3-7 to 4-7, dropping out of the first top 10 pick of the draft. I do not care. Will I ever support losing for draft position? I know the pros and cons of it. I know.
I mean, I'm not saying that.
I know you want a better draft pick, but I want this team to win every single week. And I know you do as well. Don't get me wrong. I know you're not one of those people who's like, we should tank for better draft position, because those people are idiots and they shouldn't be supporting the team if that's the way that they feel. But I just think a win like this, it is too little too late. I'm sure that's the approach you're going with it.
Exactly,
but
yes.
I just can't, I think I'll take wins any way I can get them. I think this team still has a solid chance at finishing 7-9, 8-8, because if they can just get the ball rolling, dude, I'd much rather see that than see them win one, lose one, win one, lose
I don't
one,
know,
as,
man.
as always.
Like, would you rather them be able to really get a difference maker? Like, I'm not saying they can't find a difference maker.
I think you have as good of a chance as getting a difference maker between the 10th and the 20th pick as you do in the top 10 picks. I think you can get a difference maker anywhere in the first round. Obviously, you have to pick the right guy.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they actually can. But I mean, I don't know, man. Like, let's say they run the table, go 9-7, right? They're not gonna make the playoffs at 9-7, so they're out of that. Okay, so they don't make the playoffs, and now you're stuck with the 18th, 19th pick. Like, this roster isn't where it needs to be right now. And I just don't know that, to me, there is a big difference between the 18th pick and the 8th pick. There's a big difference. The 8th pick can get you a guy like Tristan Wirfs, right tackle from Iowa. You can get you that guy, right? That guy can be your right tackle for 10 years. 18th pick, you're probably reaching for an offensive lineman. Now, I'm not saying they can't get a talented player, and that's Jason Licht's job, right? To wherever you're picking, whether it's the first round, 7th round, whatever, to find a good player. So I'm not saying that, oh my God, since they're out of the top 10, they're going to, get a crappy player. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, to me, if you're looking for an immediate difference maker and a guy with star potential, your best bet is a top 10 pick. And I just don't know what a win in late November against a lowly Falcons team really does for this team.
I get you.
That's all I'm saying.
I get you.
I'm not saying that it's not good, because, trust me, it makes everything we do much easier if they win, right? We don't have to hear other fans complain to us. We don't have to sit here and sort of make excuses almost and stuff like that. It's much easier, right? But at the same time, this, if it happened in week 8, it'd be a different reaction. But just like you said, like, just too little too late right now. And, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm with you. I see your point, but
like I said, they played well, and I'll give them credit. Like, they played well, but just don't know. I'm not saying they should have said, "Oh my God, we had the lead, we got to lose." I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying, just don't know how much it actually benefits them. And I know I'll probably get a ton of hate for that, but whatever.
No, I get your angle, but again, where you and I differ is I'm going to take a win over a lowly Falcons team in late November 9 times out of 10, because I just, again, I don't think about the draft until after the season is over and we are dead set on position. You feel me? Like, I just don't, I don't worry about going up or down. I worry about week by week, game by game. But again, that's where we differ. Like I said, you bring up a solid point. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dismissing you or not disagreeing with you, but you know what I mean. Yeah,
well, and the thing, the silver lining is, I think, like, I took a look at the front 4. Like, the people 4 or 5 spots ahead of the Bucs.
Right.
And I took a look at each one of their schedules, and each one of them have a lot of winnable games. That even if the Bucs don't have to go winless, like, even if the Bucs have a win or 2 or 3, they still should probably move up from 12. So like I said, the Chargers have a few winnable games. The Jaguars have a few winnable games. The Lions have a few winnable games. They're all ahead of the Bucs. So if all them guys win and the Bucks maybe win 1 or 2 more, but all them guys win like 2 or 3 more, then the Bucks are sitting at 9, and that's much better.
Right.
But like I said, it's just I know, like, sure, and I'm like I said, I'm all for like players shouldn't tank, right? Some front offices should tank, like the Dolphins. I like what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like at that point, I like what they're doing. But the Bucks aren't there right now. The Dolphins were stuck in mediocrity. The Bucks just aren't good.
They're just trying to claw their way out, and they've shown signs, but they're not entirely there yet.
And I have firsthand experience from that, being a Sixers fan. The Sixers, before they started tanking, were a mediocre team. When they missed the playoffs, they barely missed the playoffs. When they made the playoffs, they were out in the first round. So you know what they did? They said, "Hey, like we're done with that. We're gonna suck for a long time, but then when it's over, we're gonna be really good." And right now, I'm reaping the benefits of really good, man, and it feels good. I'm not saying the Bucks should tank. I'm just saying, Dolphins fans, like I know like what you're going through, and if they get it right, it's gonna feel really good about 3-4 years.
Yeah. Bottom line is I'm going to take a win 9 times out of 10, and again, that's where we disagree, but it's all good. We embrace debate here on the Cannon Fire podcast. I'm sure you guys have your opinions as well, so like I said earlier, sound off in the comments section below. We talked about the defensive success on Sunday. Let's talk about some of the things that went well on offense. First off, we have to give props to the offensive line. I mean, the Bucs' offensive line was on point Sunday. They gave up 0 sacks. That's right, 0 sacks. And 1 quarterback hit. It's their best game of the season. I mean, best game of the season protecting Jameis.
First time they didn't allow a sack since last year, week 1. So.
Aside from the 2 interceptions, of course, we see exactly what Jameis can do with an O-line that blocks and a defense that's playing well. But yeah, a great day for that offensive line. They did a really, really good job. And I think, kind of looking at the run game and the way that they set up the run blocks, it was pretty good as well. I think both running backs got a decent amount of production out of them. Of course, I'd like to see Ronald Jones get some more carries than Peyton Barber, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's focus on this offensive line. Great day for them, man.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of quick hitters in the Bucs passing offense. That's where I'm going to give a quick shout out. You know who I thought had a good day?
Who's that?
Byron Leftwich.
Yeah?
I thought Byron Leftwich had a really good day. I liked the game plan. It was super balanced. I believe they ran the ball 30 times and threw it 28 times.
Yep.
Like, that's how balanced it was. I love that game plan that they came in with. They were finally working Winston down the seams instead of, sideline and stuff.
Yep.
Right down the middle to Godwin on those 2,
And that's where they were most productive, by the way, was right over the middle because
that's where Winston's
secondary,
most productive. Yeah.
They just could not keep up.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't cover Chris Godwin to save their lives. They just had no answer. And, I mean, they keep OJ in as a blocker. All of a sudden, you get down there and they throw a screen to him. I love that, right? That's OJ gains 12 yards. The Vita Vea call, right? I mean, it's Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians calling that, of course, but still, great play call. They clearly caught something. And, if I'm sure Winston was told, if you see this one thing, check out of it and go to a run probably.
Yeah.
Right? If you see, and Vita was probably told, like, hey, if he checks out, this is what he's going to say, and this is what it means, and just do this.
Well, that's exactly what he said, actually, in his post-game interview, was they had asked him about his touchdown, and he's like, all right, so we went into the huddle, we were going over the play call, and there was one point where Jameis kind of looked at him and said, all right, Vita, are you ready? And they kind of knew that play in particular that they were going to Vita Vea, and I'm glad he was able to haul it in because it made for a pretty exciting moment. But yeah,
clean catch.
Oh yeah. But that was actually the next point that I was going to roll into was the balance of offensive play calling, and we didn't see them get conservative or too conservative at any point in the game, and that's exactly what
they got conservative when they needed to be.
Right. And, of course, we'll talk about that here in a second. But again, just like you said, after running the ball a measly 8 times last week, the Bucs made sure that wasn't going to happen again. They ran the ball 30-plus times on Sunday, and then they passed 28 times. Now, with the defense doing work, it's easy to say that we didn't need a super potent run attack on the ground. But balance was still necessary, and it was damn sure appreciated. But going back to what I mentioned earlier, I will say I'm just not a fan of Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones splitting carries the way that they have been. 12 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown for Ronald Jones, 11 carries for 32 yards for Peyton Barber. Rojo is the type of running back, he is much more effective throughout the game. He's just more explosive, more productive. He's going to get you more. He's averaging about 5 yards per carry. Peyton Barber shines in the last 10 minutes of the game when you need to chew clock and win the game. And we saw him used in that fashion on Sunday, but we also saw him get some handoffs that I just didn't, like, I don't like seeing them split carries throughout the game. You give Rojo 20 carries a game, especially on Sunday. He finished for, 12 carries for 51 yards? Give him 20 carries. I guarantee you one of those is going to break, and he's going to finish with over 100 yards on the ground.
He should have broke one.
Yeah, Peyton Barber can come in at the end and clean it up because that's what he's good at. I don't hate Peyton Barber as a running back. I hate the way that he's used and the way that sometimes it'll come in and it'll throw off the offensive mojo. But other than that, the balanced play calling on offense was greatly appreciated, and just like you said, great day for Byron Leftwich.
Yeah. Well, Arian said in his press conference today, and he said, like, speaking of, like, breaking one, and I actually thought it too, and I wish that I could find the clip, but I can't right now. Arian, because I know exactly what he's talking about, because I was thinking the same exact thing. This is a quote from Pewter Report's Twitter account. Arian said, feels Ronald Jones is close to popping a long run.
Oh, yeah.
Thinks he may have gone 97 yards on a play that was blown dead due to a false start. I know exactly where that was.
The offensive line opened the lane perfectly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
The defender went down, and Jones sidestepped him, and I saw there was 2 linebackers that came down too far, and if Jones would have been able to hit a burst of speed, I didn't know of 97 yards because obviously I can't see all the way down the field. But I thought it was going to be a 15, 20-yard run, and I was like, oh, man. I was like, that was close.
Yeah.
I was like, if that doesn't jump offside, that's a big play. But also, he's kind of gotten screwed. Because the Rams game, he had 2 long runs called back.
Yep.
This game, false start, which obviously we don't know if it actually would have been a 97-yard touchdown. But, he's just every long run it seems he has, like, something else happens. I'm surprised on the one long one he had, like the 30-yarder or something. I forget what drive. I think that was on the.
It was a 95-yard touchdown drive, right?
Yeah, I think that was on. Yeah, that was on the one where he scored, I think.
Yeah.
Let me see. See if I can find it here. Guess not. I can't find it. Whatever. But it was a pretty long touchdown drive there, and it was capped off because he broke a play and just really had a nice run. Yeah. And speaking of nice runs, Jameis Winston had a 25-yard run where he did a great job of choosing when to run, but he had a 25-yard run, and he got by the one defender, and then he sidestepped the other one. Yeah. It was really nice. Like, every now and then, I keep thinking, hey, he's gonna go for a touchdown one of these times.
That guy needs to, because running isn't his fast set, but dude, when he runs, he can get away from people. And I think he's got more runs for 20+ yards this season than Ronald Jones or Peyton Barber.
Yeah, well, it was. Not sure. Let me check the stats really fast, because even though the Bucs ran the ball quite effectively and it was pretty good, I just want to check something because I don't want to be wrong, so I want to make sure. Nope. Okay. So, Peyton Barber, 11 attempts, 32 yards. Ronald Jones, 12 attempts, 51 yards. I originally thought that Jameis Winston was the leading rusher again, but he had 8 rushes for 38 yards. So,
still a good day. I mean.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I think he's most effective then too, because that's when he's feeling it. He's in a rhythm. He starts moving his feet, start making people miss, and that's just another asset to his game that people still really don't account for. I know he's not Lamar Jackson, so you're not going to game plan for that really. But if you give him space, he can run, and he has decent speed.
Oh yeah, and his skill is just like you said, he's got decent speed. Again, he's not Lamar Jackson, but dude, he can just get away from people. I mean, we've seen it for years. He's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now. I'm pretty sure even after getting sacked 0 times this Sunday, he's still the most sacked quarterback.
I think he's fourth now.
Oh, thank God.
I think.
Either way, he's so good at just getting away from people. He has such good awareness of who's coming from where, what time they're going to get there, and how he can just simply get away from that. And we see it on display, especially when he takes off and runs, because that one run that you talked about, dude, it was beautiful. He looked like a freaking Madden character out there. It was incredible. But yeah, solid day for Jameis running the ball. And hopefully Ronald Jones can get some more carries moving forward. You never really know, but I think he's going to break one before the end of the season. I think he'll have one, and he'll be the first thing they talk about on Good Morning Football one of these days. Now, we've talked about all the good things about this game. Let's talk about one of the bad things of this game, and it's something that we haven't had any complaints about for quite some time, but it was Matt Gay. There was one piece of the Bucs team that did not look like its normal self, and that was kicker Matt Gay. Up until Sunday, Matt was having the best season of any Bucs kicker in quite some time. But in Atlanta, he just seemed to struggle, and it was kind of weird. 2 missed PATs and a blocked field goal, if I remember correctly.
It was a blocked PAT actually.
Okay, all right, blocked PAT, but it was just a day that he's going to want to forget. Like, it was not a good day for him, and now the narrative going forward is how can he bounce back? Because the last time he had a day that he wanted to forget, he bounced back and had an awesome stretch. So I'm confident that he can, build that confidence up once again, but not a good day for him in Atlanta.
No. What was weird was that the 2 ones that he actually missed, they were in, like, the same spot. He missed them, he hooked it to the left, which is weird, because it was like, I don't know. It's in a dome. Like, that's the weird thing.
Yeah, he was in a dome missing kicks. But do you think he's, like, anticipating for wind too much? I mean...
But you're in a dome.
Right, but still...
Like, as an NFL kicker, you got to realize there ain't no wind, buddy.
Right.
If there is, then that's the Falcons, and that's cheating. So.
Well, you remember a few years ago they were piping noise in their stadium?
Music. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and maybe they were blowing a little bit of wind towards Matt Gay's kicks. But also the block kick. Cameron Brate, I watched it like 3 or 4 times. Cameron Brate just ignores his assignment. And he just picks up the wrong guy, and the dude just blows by him. So no chance on that one. Yeah. Great hustle play by Bo Allen to be able to save it, because it would have been a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, it was. I thought he was gone.
Since Allen was able to tackle him, the Bucs ended up having kick off, and the Falcons started at the 25 rather than 2 points to the Falcons. Bucs have to sort of kick off like that weird kickoff, I believe, after like a safety.
Right.
And then the Falcons have decent field position, so that might have even changed the game like that too. Like that's a big play, but I tweeted out, and I think you might have.
I know exactly
what
you tweeted
quoted
out.
My tweet. Yeah, I believe you quoted it. I believe. So I'm just gonna bring it here. Matt Gay with 2 missed extra points. That was before the blocked one.
Yep.
I said, you know how this ends. Bucs lose by 1 or 2. Because in the past, how many times have we seen that, right? How many times have we seen a kicker just missing kicks, and it ends up coming? All NFL games, most games are going to be closing down to the wire.
Oh, yeah. For a long time. I know games last season, there were 3, 4, maybe even 5 games where the common narrative was the kicker leaving points on the board. Look at the Atlanta game last year with the crazy last-minute play. It would have been a totally different situation had the kicker we had at the time, I don't remember his name, Chandler Catanzaro, not left points on the board.
Yeah, so, and then I tweeted out after the block kick, I don't blame Matt Gay, but I said 3 points left on the board, that's big, because that is, and and at the time, the game was not done, like, the game was not over.
Right.
And that was big, because, they put those 3 points on the board, and, you're talking about a game that's over even before it actually was. So I mean, it's just the small things like that. But I agree with you. I think I wouldn't worry too much about Matt Gay. I think he's gonna be fine. I think he's a good kicker. Let's not forget that he made a kick to get them to 28.
Right.
And then I believe he also made the extra point when they scored a touchdown. I believe so. So he ended the day with a made field goal and a made extra point. So
what, 2 for 5 on the day?
He made the first extra point, and then he made the first extra point, but it like barely squeaked through. It went to the left, and it like barely squeaked through.
Yep.
And then he missed the next 2, and then the other one was blocked, and then he made the field goal, and then made the extra point. So on the total kicks, he was what's that? 3 for 6? Yeah,
so
3 for 6. I mean, that's terrible for a kicker, but it's just one game, and like I said, I would expect him to bounce back. Although it is weird of how do you have a day like that in a dome? Like,
right, it is a little questionable. But again, just like you said, just like we both
said. And
last
week's weather was bad, and he made a 55-yarder or whatever.
Right.
So last week the wind was whipping and everything. So maybe he's just a kicker that kicks better in the actual elements. That happens.
He's still a rookie.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about him at all.
Still a rookie, still finding his footing and that consistency to know, regardless of the environment around him, to make those kicks. So I'll forgive it. Again, let's just see how he does moving forward. But overall, Sunday's victory, probably the most complete performance we've seen out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season. And the goal moving forward, of course, is to just keep playing complete football. Play 4 quarters of good football. The defense showed up all 4 quarters. The offense play calling was pristine and balanced, which is exactly what you wanted to see, especially after last week. And special teams, you got to make your kicks, but we're getting there, and he's been doing it all season up until Sunday, so I'm confident he can bounce back. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much for listening or watching with video, whether it was on YouTube or BucksReport.com. You can follow the show on social media. We are on there, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Follow those for all the latest updates on the show and, of course, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can follow myself on Instagram and Twitter at Redicus, and you can follow my co-host, Mr. Bucks Football, Evan Wanish, on Instagram and Twitter at BucksWave. You can also follow him on Twitter at EvanNFL, just in case you ever want to see his hockey games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go Flyers, baby.
Oh,
Go
man.
Flyers.
How did they play last night? Because the last game I saw they played was they lost in the shootout.
Yeah, they're bad shootouts. No, they play tonight, I believe. So okay. I got the Sixers and Flyers tonight. So
the only thing that I like about Philly sports is Gritty. That's it.
Love Gritty. Love that guy.
Oh, man. So go ahead and give us a follow on social media. If you follow us, maybe we'll follow you back. And, of course, follow the show. Before we go, got to give a major shout-out to our sponsors over at Pinecrest Printing and Signs. If you have an image for your business, these guys are going to make sure that it gets taken care of, and they're going to do it in the best possible fashion. They've been doing it in the Tampa Bay area since 2001, and they handle everything. If you want to start small, they've got business cards, stickers, anything imaginable. Move it up to wide format. Go banners, posters, things like that. And if you really want to get rolling, they do vehicle wraps. Brought it up last week. Could you imagine driving around with a Cannon Fire Podcast vehicle wrap? If you really want to be that guy, do it. And they'll hook you up. Like I said,
Rhett, you got to be that guy.
I wish I could. I wish I had a functioning vehicle and I could be that guy. But until I get there, I won't be able to make it happen. But Pinecrest Printing and Signs, they do a great job. And, of course, we love doing business with them. Now, you see on your screen right now some official merchandise for sale from the Cannon Fire Podcast. We've got the black t-shirt, the red t-shirt, and, of course, the stickers. All of those on sale. $20 for a shirt, $5 for a pack of stickers, and they are courtesy of our friends at Pinecrest Printing and Signs. So you can give them a call at 813-684-5444, or you can check out their website at pinecrestprinting.com. That's just about going to do it for this week's episode. Feels good to talk about a Tampa Bay Buccaneers win, and of course, we will talk to you guys on Thursday as we preview the game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am Rhett Matthew, signing off for Evan Wanish, and we'll catch you guys next time. As always, go Bucs.